In the 6 years that Bill Ritchie had been teaching printmaking at the University of Washington School of Art, he had never attempted to show all 4 printing processes in one session. In 1972, the Evergreen State College started their printmaking program, and Bill specified the shopping list for it. It was here, 15 years later, he would get his chance. In this video, he opened with the unprecedented 90-minute demonstration of all 4 printing methods. Screen printing is the first of them, followed by relief, intaglio, and lithography. A student volunteer recorded it, and the original is lightly edited for viewer convenience.
This is a demonstration you refer to as quick and dirty. The reason I bonk on it is to shake the ink down off the squeegee, because it's so thick. I showed you yesterday on the tour the 4 studio areas, and 3 of them require a total setup dedicated. You know what I mean by dedicated? There's nothing else goes on there, virtually nothing else. Screen printing is one of those processes that requires a dedicated area. One of the main reasons today is it turns out that screen printing is the most dangerous to your health. Screen printing may be hazardous to your health. So it has to have a dedicated area, and this area is real good in many regards, but the most important one, ventilation, is not adequate. Fortunately, I think that there won't be all that many people doing screen prints because we're going to divide up in so many printing processes that it's not going to be a major problem. It's going to be a moderate problem. Now, I showed you yesterday, or I showed you in the prints in the screen print drawer, blended colors, and that's always nice to look at, and it's very easy to do. So I'm going to throw that into the demonstration. Instead of printing a solid color, I'm going to print a blended color across. Hand me 2 colors from those glass jars there. Okay. And these are oil-based colors. Give me a different one.
Here's one that's kind of open.
Okay. These are all oil-based colors, all designed for screen printing. The oil-based, the solvent in them is mineral spirits essentially, and mineral spirits is not among those listed as being the most dangerous to your health. It's paint thinner, basically. It's paint thinner. But you know, even if you buy a can of paint, the label will say, warning, use only in a well-ventilated room, or you know, some words to that effect. And the worst ones are the lacquers, the lacquer base. Those will give you a headache sometimes within minutes. The solvent will go through your skin, and long exposure will accumulate in your liver and kidneys. And after several years, you'll become schizophrenic and paranoid. I'm not kidding. It has effects all over. Your whole ecology suffers from the solvents that are in lacquer. And someone told me there are a few lacquer inks sneaking around up there that somebody smuggled into the studio. I'm not using those. But the real problem is that the best solvent for cleaning the screen when you're all done is xylol, which is at the top of the list of the dangerous chemicals. And again, hardly any ventilation. It's a big problem. Now, one of the things we do when I teach screen printing is, in the management system, 2 people address the issues of safety and security. And they will tell you all about the hazards of using these chemicals and the solution to the problem. There are 2 direct ways. One's individual. You buy a respirator and you wear it all the time, and you wear rubber gloves. Of course, that takes care of number 1, but all your friends, are conking out. So to take care of all your friends, you exercise working close to the ventilating system. You reduce your use of xylol as much as possible towards 0. Use it only when you have to, that kind of thing. So there are a number of ways of solving the problem. Let's see. I went and used an image area that's too short. This squeegee is too short. Could someone bring me a longer squeegee from that shelf there? Maybe the next shelf up. If you can't find one there. Oh yeah, that one's fine. It's called a squeegee. Rubber blade, wooden handle. And I'm going to do blended color. Now there's no paper under the screen yet, because you don't put paper down until you got the colors mixed up. The inks are a little bit stiff because I haven't really done any, I haven't done any modification at all. They just took them out of those old dried up jars. So this is a demonstration you refer to as quick and dirty. The reason I bonk on it is to shake the ink down off the squeegee because it's so thick. Okay? It's probably prepared. Then I have to clean up my my glass. That was just temporary, to mix the colors. Then I can put down the paper. Remember, all I'm showing here is the printing process, the basic principle. Not at all refined. It doesn't address the questions of how do you do two colors, how do you get colors to be in the right relationship and registration with each other, any of that. That's called a double bump. You pull it twice. And that's a typical first proof. Give me a nice piece of paper now. And when you try to get several colors and get them in the right relations, it's called registration. But registration is a relative term. There's a case like what I'm doing now is no registration, but you never say that. You say, well, it's wild registration, sort of in the general vicinity. And then on a continuum, you get into finer and finer registration techniques until you're down to several thousandths of an inch of accuracy. And that's called tight registration. Again, I double bumped it because the ink is so stiff. I want to be sure that I get coverage. Now already you're probably starting to smell a little bit of this ink starting to float around in the air. And we're supposed to put the prints in those racks. You can do that for me. Another piece of paper. And the racks are under the hood, and the hood is supposed to have better draw, better ventilation than the rest of the room. So that's the drying area.
Is this all black?
Yeah, that's fine. And here's a case of registration, right? I've got my black printed already. Did this about 5:30 this morning. Just to show you what a hard-working guy I am. Turned out pretty well. I'm starving for ink here on this one side, so it's kind of a problem. There. Expressionism. One more, and then I'll clean up. And when I clean up, I'm going to ask anybody who's pregnant to leave the area. You can go down. Well, I'll be finished. That's screen printing. Pretty easy, huh? You can see that if you work in pairs, it would be nice. Stencil printing historically is the oldest printing process known to humankind. It's because on the walls of caves where they used to live, they put their hands up on the wall and then blew, pigment down, so they printed a stencil of their hand. They also did relief prints of their hand on the walls of the caves where they used to live. So that's why I say stencil printing is the oldest printing process. They didn't have to look far to find a printing plate. I mean, it's like right on their hand. And I think that's pretty interesting, and I like to think about it that way. So it's the oldest printing process, and still the simplest one. So even though it's the oldest, simplest process, it's very versatile. And when I teach screen printing, I always teach people screen monoprint. And screen monoprint is different from printmaking in that you don't make a bunch of multiples all alike. You make a bunch of variations all generally alike. And they're virtually instant. In fact, once you get going, you can crank out 10 or 25 images before you know what's happened. And get this big stack of paper. And most of them are junk, but it's a good sketching technique. It's so simple that you can do screen monotypes. Monotypes are kind of a painting technique where you actually paint down on glass and then or on a screen or any kind of printing process you want to use, and you make a painting on it, and while the ink is still wet, you print it off to paper. So it's like a transfer painting process. It's like you stamp your painting onto a piece of paper, and it's called a monotype. You couldn't make two of them. Only if you could actually copy the same image twice could you make two. So there's no way. So it's called monotype. But a monoprint uses all the usual printing processes, a printing plate and a whole bit, but you ink it differently every time. You choose not to make two identicals. You could if you wanted to, but you don't want to. But you could, because there's a printing plate. So those are called monoprints. So for the artist or the student, getting into printmaking, it offers you a chance to be very creative after you've made the printing plates. You can print a monoprints and still keep going on the creative process. It's like with a drawing, to compare printmaking to a drawing, there's a way that you're investing all your time in this one-shot deal. Oh, you might go back and erase and change and so forth, but when you get done, you've got one drawing. And you've invested time and creativity in this. Have you ever started doing a drawing and it's pretty good and you draw for 5 more minutes and you blow it? Well, with printmaking, you can develop a print to a point, and then you could go on print it some different ways and not too good and go back and print the earlier version that's good. It's like being able to take a picture of your drawing at different stages and then being able to go back and get a perspective on what's happened. So printmaking in a lot of ways is a time process. It's time-oriented. It's temporary or temporal. It sort of happens through time, but you don't lose the originals, the first ones. Okay, well that's all there is really to stencil printing. Do you have any questions about stencil printing in principle? Helps a lot to see, I suppose. After you saw the ones in the drawer, you could probably go back and actually those are always available in the office if you're one you want to go back to as a reference to see how it was done or something like that. Then they're in there.
It looks like with these color, it looks like the oil started to separate on this lighter paper. Does that usually just happen with lighter paper?
No, well, yeah, this is newsprint. It's an unsized paper, so there's no glue in the paper. Mm-hmm. It's like toilet paper, paper towel, and so the oil just goes out. But that's mineral spirits, so it's also evaporating out of the paper. Oh. So in about 15 minutes, that brown line will disappear. Oh. But the paper has been damaged, as far as I know. The petroleum distillates that they use for this is probably hard on the paper. These are just cheap, what they call poster inks. They're throwaway inks. Yeah. Screen printing is not famous for its longevity, but we do have a lot of prints from the 20s and the 30s made in the USA. Also from foreign countries like Japan, China, Korea, and from France, we have a lot of stencil prints, which are hundreds of years old. So, if you're concerned with longevity, all you have to do is examine the kind of inks you need to use and make the adjustments to the type of stencils you're using, and it's no problem. Well, on some of these processes, I can go away and leave the plate inked up. Like when I do the intaglio demo and the litho, I can just walk away. But with screen printing, I can't. If I walk away and leave the ink dry in the screen, it really is hard to get it out, in an hour or two. So I'm going to stay here and clean this while you all go down to the end of the room. The solvent I'm going to use is xylol, as I said, and it's very dangerous to inhale it. And I don't have my respirator. I'm just sort of writing off this little bit of my life. It's not that big a deal, but I'd rather you didn't all stay here and breathe it with me. When the prehistoric people did their printmaking on the walls of their homes, they used stencil, and they also printed their handprints on the wall. So there you have the two old processes. In fact, I suppose if we could go back in time and talk to them and go in and visit and look at their art, these handprints that were both handprints and stencil, we'd have to ask them, which one did you do first? And they probably did the printing first because it was a lot easier than that sort of stuff on the stenciling. But